What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you Part 5 of our story of Baldur's Gate 2, and in the previous episode we had just arrived at the elven city of Suldanessellar after chasing John Irenicus and his sister Bodhi to this place. Now, while we don't have the full story, we learned last episode as well that John Irenicus as well as Bodhi were apparently elves of some sort prior to this. However, they were exiled for reasons we haven't learned just yet. However, we were instructed to find a priest in the city who might be able to shed some light on that. Like a lot of other chapters in this game, this is as long as you want it to be, really. There is a quick route through the chapter that you can either do or not do. Obviously, we'll be taking you through more of the story-focused stuff, but just keep in mind a lot of this actually can be skipped if you know how. First things first, we were instructed to find the Priestess, which is as good a place as any to start. So if we bring up the map, all we have to do is go to Denham's home, which is the priest we were instructed to find. As we travel throughout the city, we are of course going to be attacked by John Irenicus' forces, as they are fighting with the elves in the streets. But once we actually arrive at the priest's home, we can save that priest from 3 Rakshasa, and then we can have a conversation with the priest about the full scope of the situation. So here is where we will learn that Irenicus and Bodhi did very much so used to be elves. Irenicus was actually an elf of some renown. He had basically achieved all the mastery of magic that a mortal can hope to obtain. In terms of being a mage, he was the best of the best, and was obviously a very well-regarded elf. His sister Bodhi, while not as highly regarded, bent his ear quite a bit nonetheless, and she actually encouraged him to seek even more power, which is what Irenicus ultimately wound up doing. He went to the elves' Tree of Life, which is what connects the elves to nature and everything, through their gods, the Seldarine, and Irenicus attempted to merge himself with the Tree of Life in an attempt to make himself a god. This plan did not work out. It almost destroyed an untold amount of elves, and for his crimes, he and Bodhi were stripped through divine powers of literally what it means to be an elf. Bodhi sought to find a way around this through undeath and became a vampire. However, even that did not actually solve her problem. And this is why John Irenicus ultimately did all this research into and then finally stole our souls back in Chapter 4. Because our divine soul, as a child of Baal, was able to restore Irenicus to what he was, or at least his power level, if you want to think of it that way. The priestess will go on to explain that we need to find Elesme, which is the queen of the elves, in the palace where John Irenicus took her to. In order to get into the palace, though, we have to do a few things. We can either go the long way around and just skip the main gates, so to speak, or we can do what the priestess asked, which is to call upon the avatar of their god. Now, in order to do this, we have to gather items from around the city and bring them to the Elven Temple, and then place all of those upon the altar there, which is what we are going to do next. Now, luckily, these are easy to find. We are looking for a talisman, a cup, as well as a moonblade. The talisman and the moonblade are literally in the buildings known as the House of the Talisman and the House of the Moon. So pretty straightforward. In addition to this, we actually also need to track down a black dragon that Irenicus also had assaulting the city. So we just head northwest of town, and where the dragon is just a small square map with just enough space to fight this dragon. Now, you don't actually have to fight the dragon. It is possible to trade it at about 30,000 gold if you choose some select dialogue options, and it will also take basically everything you're carrying as well, and then it will give you the cup. You can just take all the items off your character and then give it the gold to kind of circumvent this a little bit and then avoid fighting the dragon altogether, or you can just kill the dragon and take the cup. But once you have all 3 of those items, you need to head to the temple again, place those items on the altar, and then the avatar of Rilliphane will be summoned. The avatar will explain that while he can't attack the Tree of Life itself, he can use his power over the spirits and things around to secure the city and open the gates to the palace, allowing you entry. He can't, however, attack John Irenicus directly because Irenicus is using magics that corrupt nature, and he is a nature god. So at this point, the streets become a little safer as the spirits and everything take over. However, you still will find the occasional fight. However, before we go to the palace, we actually still need to go to a place called the House of the Harp, as well as the House of the Horn. So we need to go here, and in each of those buildings, we will find an associated stone harp, as well as a stone horn. We need those to continue. After that, we can head into the palace proper, and upon entry, we will run into a tree we actually need to interact with this tree until we get several types of nuts from it. These will be used in the next part, and it's easier if you grab them now. Continuing a little forward into the palace, we will come across 2 stone statues. We need to interact with them to give them the appropriate horn or harp, and doing that will open the way to the Tree of Life. Upon entering this map, we will be contacted by Elesme's spirit, if you will, telling you that John Irenicus is draining the Tree of Life and that he is doing this through 3 parasites that are attaching themselves to the tree. So long as that's going on, she is indisposed in a cage in the middle of the map, and she's kind of projecting her image to speak to you. So what we need to do at this point is travel around the tree and kill these parasites. The nuts we picked up earlier will grow branches between the tree and actually allow us to travel around. So we need to track down these parasites. We need to interact with them. Upon the first interaction, they will summon elementals to guard themselves, and once those elementals are dead, you can interact with the parasite again to kill it properly. Once all 3 of them are dead, you will be teleported to the middle of the tree where John Irenicus has Elesme held. Now that the parasites are dead, Elesme can sever Irenicus's connection to the tree, thus keeping him from ascending to godhood, which is his goal. Elesme will basically chastise John for failing to use his years in exiles to learn to become an elf or try to earn his way back into their good graces. And it will be revealed that Elesme is actually the lover that Irenicus knew at one time. However, due to being stripped of what it means to be an elf, he seemingly lost his ability to remember their love, if you will. Which is especially interesting because even restored, he seems to be incapable of remembering this love. Now, Elesme will teleport out to go muster the rest of the elven forces, and you will be left to fight John Irenicus. This is a bit of a pain as far as fights go. He likes to cast Time Stop, followed up by Meteor and stuff, so if you have anything that can dispel his magical protection so you can interrupt his casting, that will go a long way for you. Once he's dead, you would think that we would get our soul back just like Imoen did. However, as the text on screen will tell us, we are slowly pulled away from the world following our own soul because our soul seems to be departing to the afterlife with John Irenicus. And then, next thing we know, we find ourselves in Hell, otherwise known as the Abyss. So it becomes explained to us pretty quickly that we're not sure why it didn't affect Imoen exactly this way. However, the theory is that this didn't happen for Imoen because Bodhi was an undead vampire, and thus there was no other soul in there. Regardless of the situation, it would appear that Irenicus' death caused the soul that he took from you to be sent to the Abyss, and you followed. Now at this point, there is a door just behind us that we can't get through, and interacting with it proves futile. However, as we walk around, we will notice 5 other sub-chambers that we can enter. Entering any of these will basically sum up the situation. Where we actually are is the plane of Ball that exists in the Abyss. When Irenicus died, our essence of Ball, the thing that actually made us a Ball spawn, in theory would have joined the rest of Ball's essence here on this plane. However, we still have some sway over the place, simply because of how strong our soul is, and the fact that it was untethered from us. So, in a weird sense, the realm is basically forcing us and Irenicus to fight it out over who actually controls the soul that we should rightfully claim as ours. But in order to do that, we need to open the door back at the original map. So each of these 5 little sub-chambers has a test of sorts that has usually a couple outcomes, each of which will give us a different reward when we interact with the door later. But our actual goal is to obtain a tier of Ball from each of the 5 little sub-chambers. This is done, again, through passing a little test. We can talk with the Pride Demon in one of them, who will explain that there's a creature nearby that needs to die. You can question this, and actually find a way to talk to the creature to give you the tier of Ball, instead of you killing it for it. There is a room where you will have to pass through doors. Each door demands the costs of one of your companions' lives, or if you don't have any companions with you, just a random peasant. Or you can go through a different route of doors, which will sap power from yourself. There is one where you can be given a sword, and that sword is able to either kill a genie to take the tier of Ball, or you can give the genie the sword, which will also give you the tier of Ball. There is one where you fight Sarevok as he tries to awaken the wrath within you to let you become the Slayer more frequently. Ultimately, all of these are just little tests around the area. They're very small maps. They don't take very long to complete. And once you have all 5 tiers, you need to go back to the door with the eyes in the central map and just interact with the door 5 times to use each tier of Ball. Now, this is going to give you a reward depending on what you did. This can make you immune to +1 weapons, it can give you 200k experience, it can increase your attributes. Which sounds pretty cool, but this is literally the last fight of the game, so these are not super useful. Upon opening the door, Irenicus will appear, and you can have a conversation with him about fighting him for your soul. Because while his plans at godhood are failed for the moment, he still sees potential in continuing that path by, actually claiming the rest of your soul, which you are still holding on to, this tiny vestige of it. But either way, in order to get out of here and live, one of you is going to have to die right here. This fight can behave a little oddly, but once it starts, Irenicus will summon a bunch of demons, and then he himself will cast a bunch of protection spells on himself, and then turn into the Slayer. He tends to teleport away immediately, and then there's like a little placeholder Slayer that stays here but doesn't actually seem to do or attack anything, and then you kind of have to fight the demons. Again, this fight can just behave very strangely sometimes. But your first goal should be the demons that he summoned. They're actually more of a pain than he is. Once they are dead, you kind of have to walk around the room to find him here and there. He can actually teleport to a couple different spots in the room. However, if you wait it out, his protection spells can actually fall off while you chase him around the room. And this actually makes him much easier to kill, because in the Slayer form, he's not really casting spells at you this time around. It's mostly just those protection spells, and I believe he'll occasionally try to fear you, but that's about it. So if you wait for those protection spells to come off, you can actually just kind of swarm him with summons and things at that point, and then he'll die. Once that happens, we get reawakened in the actual world, where we are talking to Elesme, the queen, who of course thanks us for putting a stop to Irenicus, and they throw a bit of a celebration for you for saving their city. And then we are met with the end of game cinematic here. This is the end of the base game. However, we still have to go through Throne of Baal. Throne of Baal actually discusses the end of the Baal spawn prophecy, which will be the next video and the last part of this series. But with this out of the way, we have covered the entirety of the base game for Baldur's Gate 2, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. May you wander in wisdom, and have an amazing day.
To end like this?
Gorion's sword has become too powerful. We should have acted long before now.
There is no reason to be concerned. The fate of this fool has been sealed.
But can we be so sure?
This spawn of Baal is doomed. There is no escape.